Anto. Thank you for joining Career LinkPod, and we are so happy you are here. So can you walk us through your journey from India to Canada?
Yeah, sure, Aayushi. Picture this. You come here packed tightly with your luggages, more tight than your seatbelt in your airline. And until that moment, everything was normal. Like every person who aspires to come to Canada for higher education, the journey is same, right? You find a college, pay the tuition, find a place to stay, then you make the travel. But after landing here, the next 3-4 years, what happened was unique. Now, I have never met anyone who has journeyed the same path that I came through. I started as a project coordinator, but then transformed into teaching for a while, teaching project management. And then now I am a project manager, IT project manager at CIBC, at Capital Markets Technology. I have associated with different colleges in Ontario. I started with Seneca for IT project management in the year 2021. And then I took another program at George Brown College. I did information systems business analysis. And then I was into teaching. That's when I got this Micro-Credential from Conestoga College for teaching. And then my latest recent education is OSLT from Humber College. So basically, this journey that I have come across will be unique for me. But then until that, the background, how I reached here, will be common, like with other people who come here for higher studies.
For sure, yeah. So why teaching? How did you end up being into teaching?
That's an interesting question. Now, before coming to Canada, when I was in my engineering program, I remember taking initiatives in coming out of the student mindset and trying to share what I knew with my fellow students. So there was this one particular course called Presentation Lab where students were asked to come up and share their ideas, which was my favorite course throughout that semester. Long back, I realized this, but I did not get an opportunity to actually exercise that. When I graduated from these programs of project management and business analysis, and I had sufficient amount of experience to share, I decided to explore teaching opportunities. And fortunately, I stumbled upon one opening at Conestoga, and that's when I started my instructor role for project management at Conestoga. It was a short term, about 8 months, I think. And since then, I'm closely associated with the education field.
Nice. Over to you, Subin.
What inspired you to become a software developer in your initial years? And you moved here as an international student, right? Back home, you were already working into IT. How did you think about, okay, I want to go to Canada and I want to pursue this career? What was that aspiration or maybe that thought process?
The career shift is an interesting thing in my life. So I still remember the first Hello World program that I did it myself. It was a life-changing experience to see some outcome right away on a computer, which is very hard to explain at that time. This happened in high school. Seeing that made some spark in me to get into software development, because we can use it for problem solving in complex situations. You can have complicated logics built in softwares and handle it for helping your customers. This mindset led me into the software development field. I worked there for 4 or 5 years, I think. And then along that way, what happened was eventually I developed people skills. I found comfort not only by solving technical computer problems, but also speaking with people, team escalation, conflict management. The natural progression from that stage to the next one with the skills that I was passionate about was project management. But then I did not see much of opportunities at that time in India. That's when I decided to step back, take a pause, do some higher education, and do really a good transformation, which is meaningful and purposeful. So I came to Canada, did project management, did a career transformation. Now, instead of hello world, I say hello 50 stakeholders. That's the only difference. Core will be the same, problem solving. I like problem solving, and the nature it has taken has shifted, but the essential behind it is problem solving.
Having this career journey from few years, what is that one mindset or that goal keeps you apart and keeps you keep going?
I would say patience and persistence. Even back from my early days as software developer, this has been helping me a lot. Having patience and persistence. It might sound like a conflicting idea, but see, just because you don't see a result, you should not give up. It's what the essence of the first principle, patience. Persistence means you don't give up easily. Like sometimes what happens is life gets a hold of you and you tend to move away from one idea to the other. But then what I have learned is if you have something really craving in your mind and you want to accomplish it, unless you're persistent, it is very hard to accomplish. So those two things have been really helpful for me.
I think even Aayushi would echo to this because it's a story for every international student or maybe a new immigrant. Persistence and perseverance and consistencies, and in this market especially, it's very much important, I believe. Over to Aayushi.
Thank you, Subin. So I have literally, because you studied in so many different colleges, and so what was the reason for you to choose Seneca or George Brown and then changing colleges?
Survival. So the way I look at this is, you might not know the entire roadmap of your life, but what you can do is have a strategic mindset. What's your next step? What is the practical next step, I should say. Now, when I was a software developer, I knew there is a deficiency in me, which was proper leadership and managerial skills. That's what motivated me to get into project management. Once I came into project management, there was a big question. Now I know how the software world works, how managerial world works, thanks to Seneca and their wonderful IT project management program. The question is, what problem are we solving? How do we define it better? Because if the starting point is not clearly defined, no matter how much experts you bring in, how well you execute the project, the outcome is not going to be that good. My next direction tuned into requirements management. How do I get an effective requirements? That's what connected me with George Brown and their wonderful business analysis program. The Information Systems Business Analyst program gave a end-to-end life cycle, how requirements are managed, how they are created, how they are maintained, and how you can track them throughout an IT project predominantly. After project management and business analysis came the soft skills, right? You now know how to do the work, but there is a way to do the work in a better way,
Right.
because we are not going to work with computers anymore in this kind of roles. Project management, we are going to deal with people. Now, having an effective communication skill is very much needed, and that's what connected me to the OSLT program, where I learned about the Canadian way of communicating in a very formal/informal way.
Is it different? If you see working in India or here, how different it is?
Exactly. And OSLT helps a lot in that aspect.
And so I think I understand that motivated you to pursue multiple programs. But then also, was there any complications with the visa because you were international students and switching colleges?
I actually did not switch colleges. Everything was in sequence. I completed the first program at Seneca, went to the second program at George Brown after it got completed. So basically,
Right.
I did 2 programs, 2 years, 3-year work permit, the standard cycle. Yeah, so
Yeah.
no issues there.
Right. And then how did the programs like this help you prepare for the Canadian work environment? I know you just spoke about it, it helped you in preparing in the Canadian. So how did it help you?
It exposed me to people with different ideas from different walks of life. Now, what that led to was a ripple effect. There is a hidden benefit to this, because this will enable you with good networking skills. If I'm to say, see in this program, right, OSLT, there was something that I learned very early. Saying sorry, the Canadian way of saying sorry. We say it a lot here in Canada. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, what was
Yeah.
that? Yeah. So basically, see, a lot of international students go through this more often than you think. Do you have Canadian work experience? But
Yeah.
actually what they mean by that is, how good are you as a person who is going to work with our team, right? We have a culture here. how easy are you to work with us? So it's okay, you're a front-end developer, you can build websites, that's cool, but when it comes to actual day-to-day work, how comfortable are you? So basically that aspect, which is implicit, was very evident, very helpful from these programs, like the other programs that I have taken.
So, do all these programs help you to get a transferable skills to become a project manager?
I would say yes. So the first step was the extensive curriculum, the academic curriculum that Seneca had. So that gave me proper foundation for what project management is, how to do it in an effective way. Then my internship helped me a lot to actually get into hands-on approach, roll up your sleeves and do your project management in real life and look at the pros and cons, what's the limit that you can do, how do you influence that, how do you manage. So think of it this way. These are pieces of building blocks. You have a foundation, technical knowledge, how project management is done, and then there is this soft skill aspect where you actually do the work and learn from it, the experiential knowledge. So I think you need both the blocks to stand on top.
For sure. I think I agree with you on this because even in HR, we have the same thing. Like there are like so many different forms of HR. There is people HR and then there is analytical HR. And analytical HR is so different. Like it comes with people skills, but then also you need information on how to work on systems, how to implement systems, and how to go live with the system, and then also integrate the other systems. But if you do that same thing in people HR, it's very different, right? So here you have to gain that technical skill. So I think for you it's the same thing, right? You have a block, but where you have to fit in all of your information, it goes in that way.
Exactly.
Subin, over to you.
Great insights. What would you consider one of your personal or academic challenges which you faced during your tenure as an international student?
Absolutely. I faced a lot. If I am to recall, I would say the biggest challenge was time management. So you have to manage your finances, the money aspect for paying tuition, paying rent, all those. Now you have to manage your time, sleep, health, those aspects. And when you have a part-time, you have to show up there with discipline. Now there is a formula that I had when I was doing part-time, when I was a student, right? So it's very simple, by the way. You get especially recall. That's the old formula that I used to follow. Yeah, no sleep, unlimited hustle, and a spark of caffeine gives you a graduation with managing part-time job. So that's the simple formula that you can take as international student doing part-time and managing studies.
And if you're comfortable, what kind of jobs, I know you did mention about part-time jobs, what kind of roles you were into as a part-time part-time job, and how did that help you in your Canadian journey? Did that have any impact, or was it just our job which turned out to be nothing in the career?
So that's a two-part question. Like, to answer the first part, what kind of jobs I did, I started working with a consultancy to work in a factory for packing and logistics. So that was pure human labor. Yeah, labor job. That's how we call it here, like the student community. The labor job. So it's night shift. I go to school in daytime and go to work at night time. And I think if I get 4 hours of sleep, then I have accomplished a good day that time. So this didn't continue for long. I was lucky to get a part-time at Nespresso. The Nespresso boutique at Square One, Mississauga, gave me an opportunity to be a part-time coffee specialist there. I was a coffee specialist for a year doing part-time. But see, there is something that you can learn at any job. That's something that I hold very dear. You can learn something out of anything that you do. The experience, to answer the second part, how it has transitioned me, I would say it definitely has transitioned me to who I am today. My experience at Nespresso as a coffee specialist taught me patience. You won't believe it, you very often will get a customer saying, why is my coffee too hot? Well, you made it, right? So you have to hold your patience and deal with them with a smile on your face. That I can see now, that patience that I had back then, 3 years back then, now I get 15 to 20 emails saying, my report is missing. From 15 people, I will get emails, my report is missing on a fine day. What's happening? Then after investigating, you can see the reports were in their spam folders. So it's basically the same problem, but in different forms. So the skill that you learn from one job can be definitely transformed to a better one on a journey. But the important thing is being conscious on what you're doing and actually learning it in a strategic point of view. If I had looked at the Nespresso job as a menial part-time job just for earning some funds, then it would have been made any sense to me. But then I understood the value that it gave, and that helped me in that transition.
Okay.
I think any job is a job, and everyone, like, when we come here, we always do that survival job, right? But then that doesn't mean, like, wherever we want to go, that this job will not help us. It does, but then our priority is always different. So we keep moving on.
I think, that's a great point, and one of the questions I wanted to ask was about the transferable skills, but you have beautifully explained how it has helped you to manage in your project management career and the way we can deal. For example, on a personal note, when I came, I used to work as a sales advisor, but then now when I look back, I feel, and I tell this to the people whom I mentor, that gave me an opening to speak more confidently and understand how to interact with the people around us. Because when you're in sales, it's a different game, right? But yeah, it's perfectly what you said. Treat every job as a job which can teach you something rather than just something you're doing for that hustle. Over to Aayushi.
Thank you, Subin. So, Anto, if someone is deciding between a postgraduate certificate, Micro-Credential, Diploma, how should they choose?
Okay, that's a very good question, especially you can ask to me, right? Since I have seen the benefits of all the different forms of education that you can get. So I would say ask these questions. So if you want to impress your recruiter who is going to help you with your next job, you can focus on a Micro-Credential, which will help you to get to that laser-focused next job. Okay, you get a Micro-Credential, you prove that you are worthy of this job. The Diploma is somewhere like a balance. If you want to explain to your grandma what you are doing, a Diploma will give you that knowledge to explain something with an experiential perspective. Post-Grad is the one that I chose to begin with, which would help you with proper structure. There is a clear academic layout, and once you get out of a Post-Grad certificate, like the ones I did, you have this knowledge repository in your mind that you can pick and choose whenever there is a need. You might not know how you're going to use it right away, but then it's a shelf with a lot of skills and techniques that you can pick and choose and put it into work anytime you want. So it's more of a long-term commitment, I would say. If you have sufficient time, you can invest that in Post-Grad certificate.
And can you tell our viewers, like, how much time it takes for you to complete a Micro-Credential, Diploma, or a Post-Grad, and how fast you can do it if you go for like a fast-track course?
So first I will say Post-Grad and Diplomas are not that different when it comes to timeline. They go similar, but usually Diplomas have a component where there is more of experiential learning, where what it means is they might dedicate a term for capstone projects or like lab work. Diplomas are usually lengthy, but Post-Grad certificates, they can start from 8 months to 2 years. Micro-Credentials on the other side is a whole different story. You can complete a Micro-Credential in 2 weeks or 2 months, depending upon the nature of the course you take. But then at the end of a Micro-Credential, what you get is specific in-scope skills targeted for a particular job. This will say, okay, listen, I'm equipped to handle this job. I'm worthy of that.
Yeah.
That kind of less time investment, but more impact.
Okay. And so how did you land your first internship in Canada? Was it through school or networking or some other way?
A bit of both, I would say. I got my internship when I was studying business analysis at George Brown. We had a mandatory co-op term there. That's a wonderful program. I studied for 3 terms, and the 3rd term was this internship term. Work integrated learning was also another component to that. Now, why I say there's a bit of both, both the elements, both networking and schools help, because I did networking like my rent depended upon it, because it literally did. I had to come out and speak to people to get to know how things are getting done behind the screens. That's when I learned about value creation, because most of the times what happens is people, this is a mindset, especially for students who come from India, where we put the accomplishments at the front. When we put the accomplishments to the front, it becomes easy to get carried away. So, hey, I'm entitled to this because I did this, I did that, and give me the job.
Yeah.
At the end, what comes out of it is, where is your job, right? So that transition happened because of networking. What networking did was expose the truth. The truth was, what value do you bring? You have your accomplishments, that's well and good, but how is it helping you solve my problems? That is where that bridge connects. That's how value is created. Now, once I understood that, the interviews that I attended through school for the internship became very manageable, right? I knew my worth. I knew my experience is going to help you in such and such ways. And from there, it wasn't that hard. So cracking that mechanics would be the toughest part. But once you do that, you can secure any interviews, I think.
Yesterday, I was talking to one of my friends, and the best line she said that, Aayushi, we are prepared for job. We are not interview prepared. Like, we don't know what to do in interviews, but we know how to do that job. And that's where the selling point is, right? Because you have to sell in an interview, because that is where the challenge is. And I was like, that's so true. And that all comes, and how do you think that all comes from? Like, to crack that interview, to use the right words in an interview. I think it mostly comes from networking and doing all this podcast and listening to people. How about you?
That's true. You're exactly where I am. Like, you're thinking exactly from the same point where I'm thinking from.
Yeah.
So the more people you meet, the more perspectives you gain. So this was also one of the reasons why I started volunteering. Now, aside from contributing to the community, I get to work with people from different stages in their life. So it opens up a different mindset, right? You never know who is going to sit in front of you during an interview. But then if you can connect with them in some way, that is going to increase your probability of ensuring trust that you are the right person for this job. So I value networking a lot, and there are different ways to do networking, and one short way is through doing volunteering.
And so how did your experience with internship shift your confidence or influence your career path?
In my early days, I started asking a lot of questions. It was an acquired skill. It just not only ensures that you understand things better. The acquired skill, what I mean by that is, in business analysis, they teach you how to ask good questions, right? Because that's the essential skill for any business analyst. But the fun fact is, your team knows that you are not falling asleep, and they will be staying awake too when you ask questions in between. So that's the fun part of it. But then you have to ask smart questions as well, because it's a delicate line where if you don't ask smart questions, you might be taken for granted. Asking questions is what I did in this sort of my internship in my career, which has transformed me, which has helped me a lot. Along the way, it's an art. The way you can refine it is to make it smarter. What is the smart question that can help me as well as my team to get to know the real essence of this subject that we're talking about?
So I have a question on because we have been taught from the beginning, or no question is a bad question, right? You should always ask question. So does that work in the business analyst world?
I agree with that. No question is a stupid question. How do I put this? In business analyst world, what happens is you gain your reputation by asking smart questions. So think of it as a credential that you have. You can influence your team in a good way if you have good credentials. To have that good credential, to secure that good credential, you have to know what you are asking. You should not ask just for the sake of asking a question. But then if you can really relate to the problem and ask the right question that can help you and your team solve problems, then I think that teams as a smart question.
Thank you. Over to you, Subin.
One of the points I wanted to add is we were talking about the accomplishments to be showing in the interview. That's what I have seen recently in the trends also, where all the career coaches or maybe the resume experts, they say, show your accomplishments on your resume or maybe the cover letter rather than your responsibilities. So that's where they say quantify it. Even if you have worked the odd job, try to show how you made that impact, or maybe a course you did, how did you impact in that program. I think that's a valid point, not only in interview, but also putting yourself through the resume. Looking back in your field job, what would be that one thing which stood out about you, which you still remember? Okay, this would be that spark which determined that journey about me in IT.
In the year 2016, when I started my career, boss back then brought me into a meeting room, one-on-one. He mentioned this one line: be as greedy as you can when it comes to learning. It's been about 9 years, I think. I still carry it with me. Look at everything. There is something to be learned here. The moment you stop that thinking, I know everything, there is nothing to learn from here, and if you overlook that, you are making a mistake. Things in IT particularly change very rapidly, especially in times like this. Unless you learn and keep yourself updated, it is going to be a little challenge.
And you mentioned about having a co-op after your studies through George Baum, right? Do you think such co-ops really help international students, or the internships which you get as a bridging for the students to get into a job, or does that improve the conversion of that job to a full-time?
Absolutely, yes. Consider this co-ops, internships as a trial session, right? A trial session where you as students can get to know how your work environment is, how your boss gives you work, how the atmosphere is, and how you work for your employer. It's a trial session because before they give you the full money and buy you, they can have a trial session, how you actually perform your work. So it's a win-win on both sides. The only place it loses is on the pocket side. You won't earn a lot during this tenure at internship and co-op, but then if you really look at it strategically, it is worth the return of investment. So yes, it is very important for that.
And just to continue on this, I believe when you completed your co-op, at that time it was a mandatory co-op and the college would support in getting you those co-ops, right? But I have also seen students where they have to find their co-ops, or maybe they don't have that co-ops. So in such situations, how that student can by themselves identify such opportunities and how they can grab such?
Networking. In such cases, you have to come out of your comfort zone and do a lot of volunteering to get to know people and the problems that they face and how you can add value to that. That is one. Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry.
So if sometimes, unfortunately, if you cannot get an internship, the good thing about mandatory co-ops is the school themselves are equipped to handle such outliers. In our school at George Brown, what happened was they have a dedicated work integrated learning team where they hand you projects from like real world working professionals to get that experience in that same 4-month period. But the only trade-off is the difference between getting an actual internship and this work integrated learning is getting the salary out of it. You won't get any stipend or anything, but then the learning is on par.
Okay. One question I had was, you did mention about volunteering a lot, right? In terms of a business analyst, for example, because there are so many people looking out for a job, what kind of volunteering can they do, or maybe what specific people they should target, or maybe organizations they should target, and if you have any insights on those?
For me, I will give you my personal opinion. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because I like this dialogue from the movie Forrest Gump. Life is like a box of chocolate. You do not know which one you're gonna get. So basically, you have to have an open mindset, just dive into it and then deal with it. What happens is you get into a decision paralysis. If you keep exploring what is the right person, who is the right person, what is the right question, what is the right volunteering opportunity, you'll never get into that. That's just what I feel, at least. But doing some research is good. You can do as much research as you can to get closer to an aligned way for a business analyst. But then the there's a lot of uncertainty there. Unless you dive deep into it and explore, it's very hard to define at the beginning.
No, I agree. But the point is, put yourself out there, go for job events or maybe whatever is possible. Try to engage with most of those opportunities available, right? And looking back, what would be one of the toughest things which you faced when you moved into a full-time job in your field in Canada?
There is definitely things that were challenging to me. Dealing with people is one among them. I think that rates the top. That will be the top ranking challenge. Dealing with people. Senior developers generally are introverts. They work in silos. They get a requirement, start coding and get it done for the day, right? They don't have to have a lot of people interaction. So I, coming from such a background, faced that challenge in this project manager role. But then what made me overcome that was I found my passion to communicate with people and trying and understanding their side of the story and helping them in the ways that I can. Because see, when I became a project manager, I knew how a software developer would be thinking, what their mindset would be, right? And I got a chance to work as a manual tester for a year and a half. So the QA mindset was also similar but opposite from a developer's mindset. Like, build a code with 0 bugs, but then try to find a bug in such a code. Those are the two edges of the same sword. So when you know these different perspectives, the way you think to solve a problem will be different. So handling such people will be a challenge, but it's an art. I don't think it can be considered as a science. There is no secret formula where you memorize it and solve all the problems in the same way. But then once you get familiar with this different type of problem solving with people, you can become wiser and wiser as time goes.
Yeah, thanks for the inputs. Over to Aayushi.
Thank you, Subin. So for me, it's about basically when you talked about specific certification, networking strategies or efforts. So it was enough for you to have that break?
Yes.
Or was it more?
Yes, certifications, yes, but networking more than that. I currently hold more than 10 globally recognized certifications, but among all that, only 3 of them are like gold standards, which are PMP, Project Management Professional, Prosci, which is for change management, the people side of things, and then I would say CSM, Certified Scrum Master for agile knowledge. Now, PMP and Prosci, there is no debate. They are the industry standards when it comes to project and people change management. But then CSM is a tricky one. Like people say, you don't have to know a lot, learn a lot to get a CSM certification. You sit for a 2-day training and you get a certification literally, right? After that exam, the open book exam.
Yeah.
But when I took the CSM certification, this was my second certification after CAPM, I remember, 2021. My trainer, Gaurav Rastogi, was different. Everything he taught me that day, the 2 days for my CSM certification, this happened in India before I started program at Seneca. I still remember every line of that. It's not just what you learn. Also, unfortunately, it also depends upon who you learn from. So if you learn from the right person, it can transform your life. You won't forget it no matter what. More than learning, it enables you to experiment with it. When my trainer, for example, just didn't explain about team velocity, walked us through that. So the 2 days program, there will be sprint goal. He would see a retrospective like in 3 hours. And see how much we have accomplished, whether it is possible, are we meeting that capacity that we committed to, should be reduced, should be increased. So I didn't just learn the textbook knowledge, but also experienced it, how a Scrum can transform your team into very good performers to do complex problem solving. So that's why I consider CSM as a golden standard as well, if it is done in the right way. But it is unfortunately rare, but it's the nature of it, right? There is a lot of trainers and you have to find the right ones. But more than the certifications, networking will help because, see, as I said earlier, having the certifications is one thing, but then proving that you can add value because of the certifications is a whole different thing. That is where your communication skill and dealing with people will help you bridge that gap, I believe. Like certifications will give you the power, but then to accomplish it, you need networking skills, soft skills.
Exactly. And that's when you meet people in networking session, you talk to them, and that's how they come to know like how you are as a person, right? That makes a huge difference.
It creates trust, which is like highly underrated when you learn when you're in school.
Yes. And so you talked about Prosci. So people know about PMP. Like I have known like everyone, because if anyone has like a journey transition towards project management, they all know about PMP. But can you shed some lights on what Prosci is?
There are a group of people in huge enterprises who deal dedicatedly on change management. What is change management? Any change, right? If you have to enable it throughout an organization, a huge organization, it is not easy. Change is hard, everyone knows that. But how do you do that? So there is this organization that has investigated thousands and thousands of business cases and how change has been historically conducted, and they have given a structure. These are certain principles. If you follow them, the change initiative that you are undergoing has a better chance of becoming successful. They have two components, a project side of things and the people side of things, according to Prosci. The project side of things, we all know how you control scope, schedule and cost. But then people side of things is most primarily focused on getting a buy-in from the people who are actually going through that change. See, this is something project managers overlook. They think if I execute a project successfully, deliver it, that's success. But success doesn't stop there. The product that you launch should be usable on a long term. That's the real success. That's what change management focuses on. Whether this transition from what is in build to go live, are people going to come back again and again to use this product? How is it going to influence their lives? Are they feeling comfortable using this product? Those aspects of people side, Prosci helps you. It's very valuable for project managers, but you can also transform your career into a change management professional if you choose to, because it's very easy from being a project manager to get into change management piece if you like dealing with people side of things.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Anto. And then how about the PMP certification? So you hold that, and can you walk us through what that process looked like for you and how did you prepare yourself for this exam?
PMP, yes, it's a mental marathon. The only word I can remember is on a textbook side, Ritamulkai, the book that I held close to my pillow for 3 months during the final stage. I think I took more than a year preparing for PMP exam, and this was when I had my part-time at Nespresso and I was studying at George Brown. During the commute from Toronto to Mississauga, I would take notes, revise the cards for refreshing my memory, taking quiz, a lot of things. But then at the end of it, you really feel like winning the Olympics. I still remember the day when I took the exam at North York. I came out and there was this lady at the reception, and when she handed out the results passed, I just took my hands and celebrated. She got panicked. Oh, what happened? Okay, celebrate. Celebration is definitely needed. And I celebrated it by getting a chocolate cake, and I should have gone for a beer, but then I settled for a Sprite. Yeah, PMP was a wholesome journey for me.
How much time you take in one day, if you have to sit and study? So what was your you had a timetable, or how did you manage your time to study that?
If it is holidays, I would spend the entire days studying for PMP, because the hidden thing about cracking the PMP on your first attempt is doing a lot of practice exams, and that takes time and patience. It might sound simple, what is going to happen if you sit and take an exam for an hour? No, it consumes a lot of stamina. So I would schedule it for holidays, the exam part. But then on other days where there is school and part-time, I would take a handbook with me with the essential notes for revision and memorization. So when you reproduce the content that you study from your memory and write it down again and again, it becomes very stronger in your mind. And there is something else to this. Why do I do that? Why do I do this? Because PMP is a tricky exam where they won't ask you anything from the book that you studied. So they're going to twist the question to collect the essence of that knowledge and put it into real world scenarios. So unless you are familiar with the knowledge that the book provides, Pinball Guide provides in your fingertips, it's very hard to relate that to the question that they ask. So even after doing all this, my exam was very challenging. There were situations where multiple options look correct, but then we all know that, and we have to take the best related correct answer, the top answer on that. And I was sitting at the edge of my seat and sweating a lot, but fortunately I cleared it the first attempt with all 3 categories above target. So that's a good thing.
That's nice. That's amazing. So what courses? So you said like you did a lot of practice tests, right?
Yeah.
Where can any students can get like a practice test, and where did you find like those important aspect of practice test, like any online or offline, whatever it was?
There are 2 courses out of Udemy which are very affordable. A course by Joseph Phillips, who is very, very experienced, and another course by Andrew Ramdale. Both are there in Udemy. These courses come with inbuilt practice sessions. Like they have quizzes, short quizzes at the end of each chapter, and a actual full-length practice exam at the closure.
And
So that's a good thing. But then to go one step above, you can actually purchase practice exams from elsewhere and do exams to give you that extra confidence that you need, which is very much essential.
You mean like an offline paper set, right?
Yeah.
Like, and prepare, like do it like by pen and paper.
Correct. I took a printout. During my commute, I would take the answers, and whenever you find time, especially when you are like when it is like a busy atmosphere where people can distract you easily. Take TTC for example, and if you can concentrate and come up with the answers, that's the real challenge. When it comes to a stay calm environment, it comes easily to you.
That's true.
Yeah, 100%. Because you have prepared for the worst.
Yeah, that's true. I live in BC, so every time I'm in transit, I always look outside because we're full of mountains.
Yeah, I'm vulnerable to that too. But when you're having the $600 exam coming up in 2 weeks, you see
that's
that
true.
pressure. Yeah.
Over to you, Subin.
Thank you, Aayushi. And just to understand, were there any prerequisites for your PNP? For our viewers, do you need to have some experience or maybe some kind of education prior you can apply or maybe become eligible for PNP?
Yeah, there is a experience requirement for taking PNP. I think it is 2.5 or 3.5 years of project management experience. But it is not just the requirement, Subin. It is more than that. See, if you're not experienced, I would say go for a CSM or CAPM certification, Certified Associate in Project Management. PMP is particularly for people who are experienced. Why I'm telling you that is, you're not getting a $600 certificate to hang it in your wall. It is not going to add any value to the wall. It should add value to your career. How does that happen? Because when you can relate your previous experience with a language that project managers understand through PMP, that makes a difference. That's how PMP creates value in your career, not by hanging in your wall. It only makes sense to go for PMP if you have experience, because that way PMP gets value from your life. Think of it that way.
And if at all you're looking to become a people leader or maybe in a long-term manager team, then that would really add a value. If you're only looking for becoming a software developer who wants to just keep on having that kind of profile, then I don't think that would add too much value to that profile.
My first certification, was CAPM, Certified Associate in Project Management. Right away, I fell for it because I thought every software developer who works in a projectized environment must go through this, because it changed the whole perspective of how projects are managed. If you know how project management happens, at least through a CAPM, you can deliver softwares in a more efficient way. You understand what is critical, what is not. You can focus better. You can solve real problems, not just sticking to a requirement, solving it and calling it a day. No, you can go further. You can have a rapid growth if you know these things.
Okay. And how do you use your PNP principles or maybe the frameworks in your daily routine? Job or maybe the jobs you have worked, or maybe the agile practices? How do you get those influences here in your work?
Yeah. PMP and agile, they are like contradictory. But then see, the way I think of it is a mashup for project managers. how structure and agility combined. I don't know whether you're familiar with cooking. If you're going to cook biryani in an instant pot, you can achieve speed plus structure. So that is a delicious recipe there. So that's how PMP is. It adds structure, and when you add agile component to it, you answer your customers' dynamic problems, complex problems. So think of it as having a yoga with project management. You can use the structured format for risk management, all these things that are very rigid, regulatory complaints, all those things. But then when it comes to delivery, actual project delivery, you can use aspects of agile so that you don't have to wait for the whole level of in detailed planning before the work can begin. You can start the work, do the analysis in parallel, and start delivering early and get customers' feedback, make some meaningful work out of it. Now, when you learn PMP and Agile project management, like sometimes people will say it is either this nor that. Okay, either this or that. But in real world, it is different. You need a blend of both. That's where real magic happens. Yes, they both should go hand in hand. And I think our industry is going towards a approach where there is huge scope for hybrid project management, which is a mix of both.
One question which came to my mind is I have seen PNP for engineers, the mechanical engineers or maybe electrical engineers, those people. And I have seen it for IT people like you and the architecture people. So do you think those both are different, or it's the same exam, but the way people use it is different?
The exam is same. The way people use it is different. What do I mean by that? What decides this? Whether you should go through waterfall or agile? It is the nature of work. If you're building a house, it is not wise to follow agile, because if you build your first floor, go to the second floor and decide to demolish the first floor in an agile fashion, your pocket will get empty, like with a huge dent. So in that cases, without having a proper plan signed off, you should not enter the floor, right? Enter the field. But in complex situations where you do not know what you're gonna get, if it is particularly like predominantly software related work where you cannot see the thing unless there's an outcome. So the faster you get some kind of outcome enables you to give valuable feedback. This is what I want. This is something I do not want. The earlier you get these key decisions, the better it is. So Agile helps you. If you wait for this decision in waterfall method, 8 months later, your market would have gone somewhere else and your priorities would have changed, and this product that you're building might become useless. All this money that you have spent might go into drain. So what decides it again is the nature of the project. If you really understand what problem you're trying to solve, you can choose which approach will be more suitable for this aspect. I can give you an example. There was a time when I had a project where the requirements were not known. There was a deadline, but we do not know what is the iterations look like, what are the first set of delivery second. So what we did was, instead of taking Scrum, which is the industry standard for Agile, we replaced Kanban, where we did not have 2 weeks period. As soon as the requirements came up, there were user stories and people started working on it independently. So everything on its own track, requirements, development, testing, deployments, everything on its own life cycle.
Okay, that's great. In this world of AI is really going too fast and influencing or maybe impacting many tech people, or many things are happening. How does that change the way you are doing your job, or maybe these project managers, or maybe tech? I'm talking about on a leadership level and a project manager level. How does AI influence or maybe help you evolve? What are the influences?
Where I work at CIBC, we just had a revolutionary breakthrough of implementing CIBC AI, CAI. I was fortunate to be the lucky 100-ish people to be selected for the pilot program. I got familiar with CAI at a very early stage. Now they have published it for the whole 10,000 plus employees. It's helping project managers solve their everyday problems, whether it be summarizing an email, sending meeting minutes, drafting professional emails to executives. It can solve a lot of problems. Think of it this way. For project managers, there will be a question. Do they have to know the technology aspect? Do they have to know the business aspect? If yes, then to what level? These answers, AI can help you. You can work on the delivery instead then, right? Yeah, but the answer is yes. There is real scope for AI in project management. There is no denying that. To what level is the question? Just because AI gives you a good answer, you should not share it with your executives right away. There should be proper review. Like you as a human to human, your customers, you will know better what will be the way you'll get better buy-in. The machine might not know that. That is something that you can work along with AI hand in hand and come up with something that is mutually beneficial.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. I understand as a project manager, there are a lot of things to keep track of, maybe the scheduling and meetings and a lot of things, right? So I believe in those areas, it is helping project managers or maybe leaders in simplifying those things. And even if it's drafting an email, nowadays I've seen that we have these co-pilots and stuff, which summarize the meetings, which also makes our lives more easy, right? So I suppose those are some of the benefits which AI is helping with. Over to Aayushi, please.
I only have question with when it comes to AI, and since you are Anto, you are a project manager. So don't you think there is always like a privacy and security breach? It can happen with like when you are asking some questions with AI, because AI has a tendency of storing the data.
Yes. So from what I know, like AI as a technology can be hosted in cloud and it can happen on premises. Having said that, privacy is an issue. Cybersecurity is a risk that huge enterprises face in these recent days. There have been a lot of instances where data breach is like very devastating. I tend to connect with cybersecurity professionals in summits often. Privacy is an issue, but there is a way you can navigate it by being conscious what kind of information you feed. So you might not need to fill in the entire customer details to come up to get what you need from AI. You can so think of it as prompt engineering, right? The prompt is the way you communicate with the AI. The prompt doesn't necessarily need to contain the confidential details. So if you can educate yourself to a level where you can decide what level of information I need to share with AI to get the desired benefit out of it. I think that would reduce the impact to a level. And this training should be made available to everyone who touches this AI, because in cybersecurity world, they say humans are the weakest link in a network. So this can happen from anyone who has access to this key to this giant.
Right, I agree. So anyone who is already in IT role and they are in early career, so do you really recommend them going through project management?
Project management is a evergreen field. Not just career-wise, it has transformed me on my personal life also. It's a Saturday today. If I want to plan something for tomorrow, I would clearly know, like in my head, what I should do, what are the steps I need, who I should ask what kind of questions, and when I should be ready. These are things that will equip you in any stage of your life. Project management is a profession. You can serve your community, irrespective of the nature of project that you are undertaking. It is definitely a good field to choose if you are having that passion to solve problems. And along the way, if you can work with people, it will enhance the probability of your success there. So don't overthink whether AI is coming, whether some other technology might fill this gap, project managers might get extinct. No, we solve problems. Like, it is a very niche skill set. So I think a lot of project managers are needed in this near future. You can look at PMI reports and there are stats there. So my advice would be, please go for it. Project management is a beautiful thing to learn.
And any advice you would like to give to international students?
Of course, international students in Canada, don't just look at your life as something that you have to survive. My friends at the early stage fell for this trap. They would do Uber or do some menial jobs and get done with that day and stick to that kind of routine. That is where things get messy. Don't look at it as a means for survival. Focus on thriving. Like, try to recall the dreams that you had when you actually thought of coming to Canada. That will be your motivator. That will be your wind beneath your wings to push you higher. Ask a lot of questions. Yeah, don't think whether they're stupid questions or irrelevant. Ask a lot of questions. Strive for the best. Don't settle for what is ordinary. And don't forget to get your winter boots before winter.
For sure. Thank you so much, Anto. Thank you for sharing all of your insights. It was a great learning curve for me as well. I am someone who is also likes to explore the other parts of change management. So it was a learning curve for me as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I agree, because one of the things I have seen is usually I've seen people taking Prosci certifications are in HR or maybe organizational development. But this was the first time I met you who has taken that, and I could understand how you have related both of your fields. So that was really interesting. And I really thank you for accepting our invite and being so open to speak whatever you had, all the knowledge not kept within you, but shared, right? And you have been very open to that. And we are also learning, as I always say, like from all the podcasts, we continue to learn and understand how we can develop ourselves. Whoever listens to this, even if it's an international student or an immigrant or even the job seekers currently, I believe they will gain more knowledge about PMP, Prosci, how the project management goes, and the tech environment, and how they can pave their journey better in Canada, I believe. Thank you very much for your time, Anto. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure attending this wonderful knowledge sharing event. And you guys are doing a wonderful work because you're contributing to this community for a better change. And I am proud to be part of it. And all the best for your future efforts.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anto.